All right, and we are live. So thank you to all who are joining us today for this month's 30 Under 30 live chat. For those who don't know me, my name is Emily Birds. I am the NSCA Marketing Coordinator and 30 Under 30 Program Liaison, coming to you from the national office here in Kansas City. We're very excited today to have a great group here to discuss club soccer in high school in a changing environment, a great hot topic that we're going to be touching on today. To lead this discussion, today joining me is 30 to 30 alumni, Matt Dorman. Matt, great to have you.
Thank you.
Matt is coming to us from Vashon Island out near Seattle, Washington. He works with East Side FC as well as St. Martin's University out there. So Matt, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
And for our panelists today, first off, we have Paul Cammarata of Long Island, New York. He works with Kellenberg Memorial High School out there, as well as a few clubs. So, hey, Paul.
How you doing?
Good, thank you. All right, and next we have Jeremy Hurdle hailing to us from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Hey, Jeremy.
Hey.
He is working with Yardfield Makefield Soccer, or YMS. He also works with Penn. So thank you very much, Jeremy, for joining us. And then finally, we have Ann Schafer coming to us from Omaha, Nebraska, working with Elkhorn Soccer Club. Great to have you on, Ann.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we're so glad everybody could join us today. Feel free to comment or tweet us your questions as we go. Feel free to let us know your opinions and your thoughts. We definitely want to hear from you. So I'll hand it over to Matt. Let's get going.
Thanks, Emily. I'm very excited about today's topic from a personal standpoint that I've coached at high school and club, and also a professional standpoint, observing the ever-evolving landscape of youth soccer and high school soccer. I think we've got some really knowledgeable coaches to discuss. So let's get right into the discussion. The first question then, our discussion area, let's describe the high school soccer experience for players. And some maybe possible benefits to player participation. Paul, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so I think whenever we talk about high school soccer, it has to be given the rubric of a good environment or a bad environment. So the experience can vary, but given a good environment, given a really good hypothetical, you have players that are working for 4 years in a system. You have players that are seeing their own development, their team development, personal development, in a 4-year cycle. I know my high school, because it has an elementary school, is a 6-year cycle. And so they're evolving psychosocially, technically, tactically as a group, and as individuals. They're getting prepared for a higher level of soccer because they're going from training 5 days a week and playing on the weekends to now a college setting or a professional academy setting where they're training during the week and playing on the weekends. At the same time, I think for them, it gives them a tangible experience where they really know that they're representing something because they're seeing their classmates after the game the next day. So when they beat their rivals, when they play a game, they're seeing their classmates, they're seeing the teachers, the people that go to that school, and it really gives them the sense of I represent something larger than myself because I see it every day.
Thank you. Yeah, I think representing your school is definitely different to the club environment. Jeremy, do you have something to add to that point?
Yeah, I mean, I think as Paul said, in a positive high school environment, which is what you would hope your players to be in, there are some big benefits to high school soccer that club can't quite offer, in terms of the psychosocial dynamic and the camaraderie, like Paul said, between players all representing their school. You're training every day together or playing games every day, which most of the time club is not offering. And I think there's other things you can gain from it in terms of coming in as a freshman, kind of finding your way. There's a hierarchy, which on your club team probably you're the same age as all the other players, probably in the same grade in school. And in terms of your development and your understanding, and sometimes kind of waiting your turn, learning how to be a sub or a squad player, and then working your way up to being a starter, that's a really important experience. And that is more similar to what a lot of players might experience in college if they go that far. So I think that, sometimes the high school level isn't as high as the club level, but it offers a lot to young players.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. I think that, as coaches, we really need to recognize that we're developing the person, not just a player. And a lot of time as coaches, we talk about, all the technical aspects, but there are many social aspects that are really important to the development of people. Thank you. Ann, do you want to touch on that subject?
Oh, yeah, just to kind of continue what Jeremy was saying, I think high school can provide a lot of benefits. It keeps kids out of trouble. It gives them something to do after school. It mirrors the college game a lot. Like Paul was saying, they train all week and then play on the weekends. Gives them some pride, some school spirit, some unity with their classmates. And I think it also gives a chance for kids to be recognized and become leaders and work in maybe with a more diverse group. Because, if you go to the school and you go out, some schools don't have choose from. And so therefore you're working with a different group of players than you would in your club setting. So I think it gives them something that they can feel like they're a part of, gives them some ownership over the team as they continue through.
Perfect. Just going, on my own personal example a little bit, we had players that won a national championship. We had a player on the national team, and they wanted to participate in the high school program. So there's a reason that they want to participate. I think we've touched on some good points there. So taking off, kind of the high school hat and putting maybe on the club hat. How's about we describe some challenges incorporating both the high school and the club season, into the youth soccer experience. Jeremy, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So I know it's different in different states, but here in Pennsylvania, the high school season is the fall for the majority of schools, and then club can go through the fall, but normally takes over kind of at the end of that. I think, straight up, I think that trying to do a club season on top of a high school season is, basically impossible to do in a way that responsibly monitors the workload for players. If you take like the average high school week here, they're playing 2, 3, maybe 4 games. They're training on the weekdays that they're not playing. And that alone is a ton. And that's on the back of, 2-a-days, preseason, all sorts of ridiculous fitness work. So, my recommendation to my players and what we do with my team and throughout my club is that the high school age teams basically shut down during the high school season. Now, I know that a lot of club coaches keep them going. And I think a huge challenge is that there seems to be limited understanding or communication between high school and club coaches. You have club coaches kind of turning their nose up at the high school game. So you've got these kids coming off a week of 2, 3 games, and they really need to rest, recover, deal with homework or whatever it might be. And then they have maybe 1 or 2 evening practices with the club team, and then a tournament or a couple games on the weekend. And it is just too much. And then the high school coach will get them back the next week and expect 100% effort, with either choosing to ignore or being completely ignorant about the fact that these kids also play with their club team on the weekend. So in terms of the physical toll, the mental toll, you can see kids kind of checking out or becoming numb when they're getting pulled in different directions by different coaches who aren't on the same page, who aren't communicating, and who are both asking, 100%, how come you're playing so slow tonight? How come you're not at practice sometimes? How come you've got so many injuries? It's because, like I said in the beginning, I think club on top of high school is too much.
So in your area, who dictates whether the club plays during that high school season? Is it the individual coach or the individual players or the league?
It wouldn't be the league. I think at my club, it's the director of coaching. Once the kids hit their freshman year, they stop playing in the fall. There are various tournaments or leagues that you can do during the fall, and I know of other club teams that we compete against that do kind of keep going. But the most that we would ever do is maybe a light Saturday or Sunday practice, just so the guys kind of see some familiar faces. One more thing, I know I've been talking a lot, like another challenge we see is even when that high school season comes to an end, maybe first or second week of November, the showcase season for the club teams is starting up right away. So the guys should probably have like 2 weeks totally off, shut down, physically recover, mentally recover. And it's just, it's almost impossible to do with the way that the club season just starts up right on the back end of high school.
Mm-hmm. Anne, do you have some points to add to this discussion area?
Sure. In Nebraska, our high school seasons are in the spring for both boys and girls. So we can work with our players up until about the last week of February, and then we are hands off. If they're involved with their high school soccer team, as a club coach, we're hands off. We can't coach them. So, but our challenges arise much earlier than February. In November, they'll start doing conditioning and futsal games with their high school teams, and so then we lose them from our training. And so just we don't have enough time with them. Kids will miss because they've got too much homework, or they've got a big test, or they're doing basketball, or they've got a high school game. And so that's a big challenge that we face, trying to keep them going. And then especially this year with the birth year changes, I've got a group of O2s who are mixed 8th and 9th graders. So trying to continue on with my 8th graders, continue to have a good positive training environment with them, all the while missing our 9th graders here and there in bits and pieces for different games and trainings with their separate high schools. So that's one of the challenges we face up here.
Excellent. Paul?
I think, like Jeremy was saying at the beginning, it's such a huge, it can be such a huge tug of war between club and high school, because when you're looking at the individual person, you look at the physical aspects, you look at the mental, psychosocial aspects, the fact that they're getting 3 hours of homework sometimes every day in school. For us at the high school level, so the team I coach, our biggest focus, and sometimes you bang your head against the wall because you still have high school teams doing 3-hour trainings twice a day, basically turning it into a cross-country club. For us, the biggest focus is, can we offer the best training we can and give the players the idea that they're not missing out? Because I think a lot of players that go into certain high school programs worry that they're going to miss out on a higher level of training or a higher level of competition with their club team. And that's why you have a lot of players still playing showcase, like Jeremy was saying, in the fall. We have a fall season in New York, and some of our players still play showcase. But we're trying to offer them the best training they can get during those 3 months. So it's not like it was a start to their club training. It was a continuous progression for their own development and for the group itself. It doesn't happen everywhere, and it needs that right environment. But can we offer a good level of training where they don't feel the need to then go to training 2 hours later with their club team to prepare for their showcase or prepare for their extra games they have on the weekends?
Yeah, I think you touched on a point a little bit that with a club team, your players go off to different areas and they're all having different experiences with different high schools, and it can vary widely. On my own personal club team, we have people that kind of are on state champions, and then maybe some players that not necessarily progressing through into the state tournament, and then you get the players back to the club team at different stages. So if you're going through all the way through to state, it might be through till November. You get them 3 weeks ahead of or behind some of the other players. So, as a club coach, when you do get the players back, you're incorporating small-sided training sessions, and you're trying to introduce players back in, to the larger team environment. So we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but if we just want to describe within your area how the high school season fits into the calendar year youth player. Anne?
Yeah, so they'll start doing conditioning and weights with their schools, probably start in November. And then most of the high schools play in a futsal or an indoor league here locally. And so the leagues do a nice job of setting up a high school league specifically for them. So they just go and they play, no coaching there, but they go and they play. And then they'll start individually. They can work in small groups with their high school coaches at the start of January. So they'll do that with small groups, and then tryouts will be the last week of February into the beginning of March, and then they'll hit their season March, April, and then the state tournament wraps up about the week before Memorial Day. So it's pretty heavy March, April, May with games, anywhere from 3 to 4, depending on tournaments, depending on if they make a run through state. And then potentially as a club coach, we could have them back by Memorial Day weekend. But again, it just depends on how you get them back, whether their team was successful and made a deep run, whether they've been injured. But then you've got to consider time off and recovering both mentally and physically. So it's a good chunk of time that we miss them as a club coach, but it's a good chunk of time that they get to work with their high school teams as well.
Yeah. So, Anne, if you describe, within your calendar year there, the high school coach and high school season is kind of short. They're not generally going to give the players any time off. How do you, as a club coach, incorporate in a year some time off for players if they're kind of doing both?
It gets tough because we want to keep training and we want to have them as much as the high school coach wants to have them. I think some of it you just kind of have to, as a coach on an individual basis, check in on them and ask them, and how are they burned out? Are they coming to training tired? Are we just setting them up for injuries or for disaster? And so we'll have some time off here with the winter. Our indoor training space, we'll take some time off. Could they use up more? Probably. But we'll give them a little bit time off, but we're talking like a week or maybe 2.
Okay, thank you. Paul, how does the high school season work into the calendar year in your area?
So I think similar to Jeremy as well, in New York, high school soccer for both girls and boys is in the fall. And so we'll get the players for tryouts around middle of August or so. And then we'll finish, depending on how well you do, the season can go until the middle of November. So it would have just ended a couple of weeks ago. So we do deal with, players. We are lucky enough where we have players who are playing on showcase teams who are able to play in college. And so that fits into it, but we do get a large chunk of time with the players. And it does take away some of it, of where some of them are training, some of them aren't playing club for that time period, but we'll take the entire fall, and then they might have, say, a couple of weeks. Now in New York, it gets super cold super quickly. So they'll go indoors very quickly. And now they've actually just started indoor training for the past couple of weeks. So they'll have their high school season in the fall. Some of them, that will be all they do. Others will do showcase as well. And then right after high school season ends, for us at least, it's usually a quick transition into indoor winter training with their club team.
Excellent. Jeremy, similar, it sounds like, Pennsylvania might be a similar area, but how does it fit into your calendar year?
Yeah, pretty similar. We're a bit tougher. We stay outside longer. Nothing to do with the climate. Yeah, so high school, they'll go beginning of August through mid-November, like Paul said. And then, like I said before, we're under a bit of pressure to, from the club perspective, to pick them up as soon as we can when that high school season is done, because then we're getting ready for, everyone at my club does a big like Thanksgiving showcase, Bethesda or whatever it is. So we get maybe kind of 2 weeks to prepare them before Bethesda. And now we're preparing for Disney, so we're still outside. And then after Disney, which is like Christmas time, they'll get a week or 2 off, and then we train outdoor if we can, indoor if the weather makes us, through the winter and into the spring, which is our main season, which is, State Cup, league games, other tournaments. And then in the summer, that's kind of their time off from club besides when they're playing high school. We do like some pickup practices, but once State Cup or regionals, if you're lucky enough, once that's finished, it's pretty casual with the club stuff. And I know that they pick up like some morning running sessions with their high school and stuff. So we take our foot off the gas a little bit in the summer as it feeds into their high school season in August.
Yeah, I can remember when I was on the East Coast, the summer was very different to what it is in Washington. In Washington, we have a club tryout May, straight into training, until August is when they break for the high school season, and they'll have August, September, October, and if they're fortunate to get into the latter rounds of state, they'll go through to November, and then we start right up with club again all the way up to May. So finding a balance for the players, and I think my club does it quite well, and making sure that they do get a break to rejuvenate, but also get excited about coming back again. It is important and a good challenge for both, club and high school coaches, which kind of moves us on to the next question and discussion area. With the changing landscape of youth soccer, what are some of your thoughts on the elite player and the guidelines provided by the Development Academy, and maybe how they relate to high school as well? Paul, do you want to start us off with that one?
Yeah, so I think the U.S. Developmental Academy is doing a good job of what its goal is. But again, it falls into that idea of, are you in the right environment? Because development academies, just like high school, just like clubs, can be hit or miss. So in New York, I'm lucky enough to live in the area with the New York Red Bulls Academy, which is a fantastic academy. At the same time, we're near an academy that's just relatively recently lost its academy status. So I think what happens is some clubs are doing really good work. Some clubs need to start doing some really good work. But for the high school player, we're lucky where, I don't know if it's the same in the rest of the country, but the academy structure obviously forbids players from playing high school or for playing club in the most part. On Long Island, and it might be something more widespread, they do let players play high school their sophomore and senior year, and they will play the academy their freshman and junior year. So that helps us out because we're able to get some of our better players who want the high school experience. But the Development Academy in and of itself is a really good idea and a really good program. Now we just want all of the participants in the Development Academy to kind of rise to the occasion of the level that they're at. And I think the competition between now ECNL and DA hopefully will help push the level up, because now that there's competing interests, people are going to want to make sure their product is the best.
Excellent. Jeremy?
But at the same time, Paul, and this is just playing devil's advocate, that the last point you made about ECNL and the academy, I mean, to some extent, and there's tons of great players out there, to some extent, it's going to dilute the talent pool at the top, don't you think?
Am I allowed to respond, or?
Yep. I don't know. I'm not in charge of this.
Well, I mean, no one said no yet, so I'll respond. But yeah, I think ultimately the biggest issues with Development Academy, with ECNL, are the fact that we're charging thousands of dollars for most of these clubs. I don't necessarily think we have a dearth of talent. I think we have a paywall at times that's stopping us from finding this talent. There are tons of players on Long Island and in Philadelphia and in Nebraska that can play at a Development Academy level. There aren't tons of players on Long Island, in Philadelphia, and Nebraska that can pay at an academy level.
Am I up again?
Yeah, Jeremy, go ahead. You have some more?
I mean, no, it's a great point. And maybe my knowledge isn't broad enough of the subject, but so, from a pay to play perspective, how is the ECNL boys coming, being introduced? How is that going to positively affect that landscape?
Is it back to me, or?
Yeah,
Well,
I'm asking you.
Sorry.
Or anyone.
Well, you can have, but I guess the difference with the ECNL is that they don't. The participation in high school is not restricted,
Right.
Whereas the Development Academy may be. So, how does that impact player choice and the player experience, in terms of whether they want to and can play the high school game?
Yeah. Okay. No. I was wondering more about, obviously the people are always discussing how we can kind of improve or evolve the pay to play model, because it definitely limits some of the more talented players in our pool. But I get that's not the question. So from my perspective, what are my thoughts on the elite player and the guidelines provided by the Development Academy? Like Paul said, I think that in general, the academy does a really good job at developing players, putting them in a professional environment, giving them great training from qualified coaches. with the high school thing and forbidding them from playing high school soccer for the most part, I understand the thinking behind it. I see huge positives out of my club players after they come back from their high school season. We already talked about the psychosocial benefits of it, but in terms of, learning how to compete, learning how to play kids that are older than them, learning how to be on a team that trains every day, I think those are huge positives. So I would never tell one of my kids that they shouldn't play high school soccer. One thing that concerns me slightly about the Development Academy and having watched a number of academy events and games is kind of the mandated style from U.S. soccer that results a bit in homogeneity of playing style between teams and also of skill sets among players. You can watch a ton of academy games and they all, for the most part, kind of look the same and have the same style. And in terms of growing the game in this country, and if your eventual goal is to, put kids through the national team and compete better on an international level, I don't know if that serves us the best. And if the kids aren't going to go pro from the academy and they're looking to play at the college level, I also think that a lot of the time the game in the academy does not look very much like the game at the college level. And that's not to say that the academy isn't preparing kids for college, but there's a lot of differences. So, those are kind of my 2 cents, a couple ways that the academy is not necessarily helping move the game forward in some aspects.
Okay, Anne, do you have some thoughts on that area?
Sure, I'll add a few. Those are some good points that were brought up before from both Jeremy and Paul. I think one of the biggest downfalls to mandating with the DA and forbidding kids to play high school soccer is high school soccer is huge up here in Omaha. The local support from the communities, the fan base that these schools have. I've never seen so many people at a high school soccer game than up here in Omaha. And you take that away when you take away high school soccer. I think, especially then for the girls, the women's national team, the NWSL, has had some success here. And I don't know if adding in the Development Academy improves that at all. Their season runs from November to July with 30 plus games, and it's supposed to be meaningful competition and create all this exposure. We have several players up in the area and in our own club that have had some exposure and some positive interactions with college coaches and taking that next step. And geographically, that developmental academy is not in our area. I think they're going to have some teams in Kansas City, which isn't too far away from us, but we're a bit limited geographically with those teams and those academies that are available to us. So.
Okay, cool. So just touching on the training to game ratio and how high school and club may impact the total number of games a player could play within a year, if they're participating in both areas. Jeremy, do you want to touch on that area?
Sure. I mean, we've definitely already touched on it a little bit. I think that kind of more important than the training to game ratio is, as a coach, it's definitely part of your responsibility to be aware of the overall workload you're putting on your players, whether that's from training or games. So to understand, their level of fatigue, their level of fitness, their susceptibility to injuries, and at the end of the day, tired players have lower speed of play and higher susceptibility to injuries. So that's what you need to stay away from. However, I think that the notion that training is more important than games is flawed. Not to say that you should be playing as many games as you're having training sessions, but training and games are codependent. The game is the reference point for everything. So, I understand why training is important. Players can get more touches, technical development in an environment like that, but there's plenty of player development that goes on in game situations. And I think Players need to learn how to play, how to compete, how to be a starter, how to be a sub, how to play against different formations, whatever it might be. So I think that there's a bit of an obsession with training is far more important than games. I think it's flawed in that sense. I think, as Ann said, I think players should be playing as many meaningful competitive games as possible within the confines of responsible periodization. So that's not a game every day. That's 72 hours between games or whatever it is. But games are really important. If you look at why we're developing players to hopefully succeed in games, be that at the college level, at the pro level, on a national team, whatever it is. So you need to be in that environment. One quick example that I was thinking of when I was kind of preparing this question is I was fortunate enough to go on a trip with about 15 other coaches to Madrid in May, and we visited four academies in Spain and got to watch them train and got to ask the coaches and the directors questions and all of this. And the question was posed, in the US, we're really prioritizing training. We want to make sure we don't overwork the players. How many games are your players playing? What do you think about this? And this was to a U16 coach, I think he was at Real Madrid, very experienced coach. And he put up a chart of how many games the players are playing at each age group, starting with the Real Madrid under 9s, I think it was. And they were all playing between 80 and 95 games in a year. And the example he used was, you have to learn how to compete and to win. And if I had the best 20 players, the most talented 20 players, and took them to a desert island and we trained every day but never played against anyone else, would we turn into the best team? And he said absolutely not. So that's a little example of the importance of playing in meaningful games and not just obsessing over training.
It's a nice specific example. Anne, do you have some thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think the training to game ratio is huge. I think Jerry makes a good point with the games and having them be meaningful and having them be a teacher for our players. But I think on the flip of that, you have to look into, are we really getting our job done at training? Training is our time to coach and our time to get our piece to the kids. And the game is the time for the kids to play and to put what we've been working on into practice. And I think we have such a emphasis on winning across all cultures here with soccer that, if we don't play any games, we can't win. And if we don't win, we won't have that trophy to take home. And I think parents get really hung up on we have to play games and we have to win games. And so I think it's a good balance. I agree with Jeremy that it's got to be a good balance. I think the training has got to be good. Coaches have to be prepared and ready to go, but you also need that game to be the teacher for the players as well.
Thank you. Paul?
I think both points from Ann and Jeremy are right, and I think there's just a bit of nuance to the discussion. It's not, like Jeremy said, it's not games are meaningless, and like Ann said, it's not win at all costs. Games are the most important thing. I think what happens, though, when you look at high school soccer, for example, we play every Tuesday and Thursday, we play league games, and we usually have non-league games on a Saturday. So in the span of 6 days, we're playing 3 times. It's really difficult. So on a college level, you're playing Fridays and Sundays. So you're looking at how do we incorporate a couple of training sessions and 2 games in a week? When are we giving enough resting periods for our players? When we're giving our players enough time to recover from a game, from a session? When we look at a game, I think a game, like Jeremy and Em were saying, a game is like a test. So throughout the week, we're going to train our team to pass the test, but keeping the school analogy, like the US Department of Education is finding out too much testing is bad too. So we don't want to play too many games, but we want to play 1 or 2 meaningful games. I think the way to bridge the gap is how competitive can we create our training environment? So if we're going to play 1 game on the weekend, how competitive can we make our 5 training sessions before that game? I think there's a real issue. We were just talking about a really nice soccer complex in Kansas City before this started. There's a huge issue of teams playing 6 games on a weekend because they're playing at a tournament, 4 games on the weekend because they're playing at a tournament. And in no way, shape, or form, in my opinion, does that aid development. I think it aids some of the problems towards development, but if we're playing 5 games in a weekend and it's a meaningful competition, but we're now increasing the risk of injury, increasing the risk of any number of problems, is that really help creating a competitive mindset or a dangerous mindset in the players? That would be my question.
Some good views there. I think just to wrap up that kind of little concept, with an example from Washington, if you get to the high school state cup final, you'll have played about 20 plus games in 2 months. Why do you need to play on a Tuesday and a Thursday? You just, Wednesday is just a recovery day. Friday is just a recovery day. Do you need to play each school twice? Do you need to have so many preseason games? Do you need to have so many people get to the state cup? We even have, if you're in the state, the regional tournament and you lose, you go into a pigtail tournament, so you still have a chance to make the state cup. So that's additional games. And I think definitely managing the player to game ratio is going to be important. So thanks for your views on that. Just to kind of wrap up our discussion with the last question, there's a lot of different levels of play within club and within high school, and players have different experiences. So how does the different levels of play maybe impact the player experience? Anne, do you want to start us off with that one?
Sure. Yeah, just a couple of thoughts on this. Yes, it absolutely impacts their experience. You could be on a really good club team and go off to a really poor high school team, and then vice versa. You could be on a really good high school team and have sort of an average club coach. I think it's an opportunity for kids to hear a new voice by having a different coach, and it gives them different things to work on. You could be an average player on your club team and head off to your high school and you could be the star. And it gives you different things to work on and different skill sets. You could work on your leadership. When you're the best player, you're forced to operate and to train differently than if you're an average player or just trying to hold on tight. So I think it provides some opportunities for players when they play both club and high school.
Excellent. Paul?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, like Ann said, we've, looking at my personal example, we have players who are playing development academy, and we also have players who aren't playing structured soccer in the spring. They don't play for a club team. So there's such a huge difference in potential ability or potential talent. I think it goes back to something I said earlier, which is, in that case, I can't control, in most cases, what club our players choose to play for. I can't control whether or not our player decides he wants to play soccer in the spring. I mean, as much as I would like them to, some of them just don't want to. They want to play lacrosse. They want to play something else. So for me, can I offer a high level of training for the kids, regardless of what club they're playing for? We have players who are playing academy. We have players who are playing nothing at all. Is it difficult for them? Because sometimes you'll have players who are playing at a very high level who are questioning why they have to play with players at a much lower level, who find it frustrating because they're playing with players who don't think or play at the same pace or level or ability as they do. Like Ann was saying, I think it gives them a really good opportunity where instead of focusing on them, can they now play in a certain way to make their teammates better as well? So now they have to solve some different problems where they're used to playing on a team where everyone has a perfect first touch. Now they have to decide, they have to really think about the ball they're giving their teammate. They have to really think about the weight of the pass, the speed of the pass, the thought of the movement and the actions, because they know that they have players who aren't on the same level as them. I think for the complete development of a player, I think in some cases it's good at times to play with differing abilities and sometimes lower abilities than maybe your own current level.
Thank you, Paul. Jeremy, do you want to wrap up how different levels of player and levels of club and levels of high school would impact that player experience?
Yeah, I mean, really just going to kind of rehash what Paul and Ann said, but I think that as long as you have your high level, whether that's your club team or your high school team, playing at a different level is nothing but a positive for the reasons that Paul and Ann said. Develop, if you're choosing to look at it from developing your leadership skills, or big value that we see sometimes when we're recruiting, for instance, is maybe someone dropped off an academy team, they've gone to a club team, and now they are the go-to guy that has to come up with the goal or come up with a big play or whatever. That's valuable in a player's development. So, not much else to say, but I think being in a different role in a different environment is a positive for a player's overall development and teaches you different skills than just, you know, staying with your one club or your one high school and being in your comfort zone.
Excellent. I think it's really good, important that, you know, touching on the three of your thoughts there, that each player's experience is going to be different, their needs are going to be different, and they can get something from every experience that they participate in. So I really appreciate those thoughts. Jeremy, Paul, Ann, thank you from me. Do any of you have anything additional that you would like to add to this discussion topic area?
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, thank you, Matt.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Emily, over to you.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. It's been so great. I think this was a fantastic discussion. I was so glad we could get you all on today. Matt, I appreciate you leading this discussion and doing such a great job. And obviously to our panelists, Ann, Jeremy, and Paul, appreciate you hopping on. Thanks to all of our viewers today. I hope you all got a little something out of this discussion. Obviously, you can go back and watch this on our YouTube channel. We'll be going live from convention in LA next month, as we hope to see you all at convention. If not, definitely tune in on our social media. We'll be doing a ton of fun stuff from convention with these folks. And obviously, we're there January 11th and 15th in Los Angeles. And then we'll be back on YouTube in February. So thank you, everybody. Happy holidays, and we'll see you soon. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.